During a period of about 1,000 years, the Roman economy underwent several changes, thanks to the political, social, and cultural transformations that Roman society experienced throughout its history. In this video, we will explore how this economy managed to endure for such a long time and the impact it had on Western civilization. Initially, Rome's economy was predominantly agricultural and land-based, with small-scale producers cultivating their own lands. However, over time, the city of Rome became a center of trade and industrial production, propelling the economy to new dimensions. The basic crops of Roman farmers in Italy included various grains, olives, and grapes. Olive oil and wine, apart from direct consumption, were among the most important products in the ancient world and led Italy's exports. The Romans employed a limited form of two-tier crop rotation, but agricultural production was largely low and required a large number of slaves to operate at any significant volume. One downside of Roman trade and economy was the challenge of transporting and storing food throughout the empire. To address this, from the 2nd century BC, millions of ceramic amphorae were produced for the purpose of transporting and storing food. A significant number of these amphorae have survived to this day, particularly in locations like the excavations in Pompeii and Herculaneum. Farmers could donate surplus crops to the government instead of having to pay a monetary tax. This system allowed rulers to gain popularity with the people through the free distribution of grains and also helped to feed the legions without depleting Rome's government resources. But this also left farmers with little incentive to increase productivity or production, since a larger harvest translated into more taxes and more free grain distributions. Citizens ended up becoming dependent on these grain subsidies and the extensive volume of trade that emerged as a result. The need to secure provinces that would supply grains to Rome was one of the most important factors that led to the expansion and conquests of the Roman state. Among these conquests were the provinces of Egypt, Sicily, and Tunisia in northern Africa. These areas were of vital importance in the processing and shipment of grains to Rome. Grains were directly shipped to Ostia, the official port of Rome, and penalties for interrupting the most direct route included deportation or execution. Once delivered in Ostia, the grain was weighed, checked for quality, and then transported by barges along the Tiber River to Rome, where it would be repackaged for distribution throughout the empire. While food production and transportation dominated the commercial industry, there was also extensive exchange of other goods from all parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. The prosperity of the empire and many of its citizens generated the need for luxurious and exotic imports. Silks from China and the Far East, cotton and spices from India, ivory and wild animals from Africa, large quantities of metals extracted from Gaul, and of course a significant number of slaves from all over the world. As the empire expanded, so did the wealth of its citizens, who had an increasing appetite for purchasing goods and items. Roman markets provided a place where goods and people could come together to buy domestic products, food, and luxury items from afar. In 112 AD, Emperor Trajan created a public complex that housed trade, government buildings, and business offices. This complex became known as the Market of Trajan and earned the nickname of being the world's first shopping center. The importance of industry and manufacturing was much smaller than that of agriculture. The largest industry in ancient Rome was mining, which provided stones for massive construction projects and metals for tools and weapons that conquered the Western world. Greece and northern Italy supplied marble for many of the buildings that we know today. Large quantities of gold and silver were extracted in Hispania to mint coins and create jewelry, while mines in Britannia produced iron, lead, and tin for weapons. Cities and towns throughout the empire established small-scale factories that produced ceramics, glass, tools, and handmade jewelry. Extensive trade routes were established on land and sea. Roman roads are a lasting legacy of Roman domination, and many are still in use today. While the benefit of a vast road network was the transportation of goods, its most significant purpose was the rapid mobilization of legions. Following the trail of marching soldiers, a large number of goods were transported along these roads. However, overland transportation was slow and expensive, as heavy loads on wagons and carriages were pulled by hefty oxen. Large and slow shipments were vulnerable to attacks and weather conditions, so faster horse-drawn wagons were used, but they could only deliver lighter loads. Caravans of camels or donkeys carried loaded baskets called panniers, and some goods were transported by slaves, providing cheap labor. Overland trade was only profitable if the goods traveled short distances, or if the cargo was small and consisted of expensive luxury items. Most heavy and bulk goods, such as food, precious metals, stones, and construction materials, were transported by water. Numerous maritime routes provided cheap and easy access to all parts of the Mediterranean. The consolidation of the Roman navy during the reign of Augustus diminished the threat of piracy, but weather conditions and poor navigation equipment could still wreak havoc on a convoy. Despite these risks, there was no better way to transport goods than by ship. Romans thrived on imported goods, and importers were among the wealthiest citizens of the empire. The system of trade through the exchange of goods was common in the ancient world, but the Romans also used one of the most advanced coinage systems in the world. Brass, bronze, copper, silver, and gold coins in the imperial system were minted and circulated under strict rules regarding weight, size, value, and metal composition. The popularity and value of Roman coins became so great that they could be found as far east as India. Roman coins were highly detailed and crafted, often serving as tools for emperors to circulate various forms of news and propaganda to the people in the world. Just like today, trade also relied heavily on keeping records and accounting for the movement of goods and money. Things were no different in ancient Rome. The Romans used their own numbering system, which we now call Roman numerals, likely derived from the Etruscans who occupied much of northern Italy before the Roman Empire's rise. Roman numerals worked, but compared to our modern numbering system, they can be quite complicated and time-consuming to write, especially when it comes to larger numbers. Over time, due to its vast territorial expansion, the Roman Empire incurred very high costs to maintain the conquered provinces. Additionally, corruption and mismanagement of resources by rulers led to a waste of resources and high taxes, which burdened the population and created political and social instability. Roman currency also lost its value due to inflation and coin counterfeiting. This led to a monetary crisis that negatively affected trade and the economy as a whole, ultimately contributing to the economic collapse of the Roman Empire. If you enjoyed learning more about the economy of ancient Rome, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel.